Come, Ms. Damali.
Uh, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're very welcome here. I'm glad you're able to make it in the morning. All protocol observed. I'm going to rely on David Ofunji's protocol list, and I observe that protocol. My name is Damali Ssali. I am the Chief Programs and Projects Officer. I am representing the CEO of Private Sector Foundation Uganda, who was supposed to be here, unfortunately couldn't make it, and so Mr. Steven Asimwe does send his apologies. I've been requested basically to just set the scene for private sector opportunities in the green zone. And as the private sector generally in every economy drives economic growth, it drives employment, it drives poverty reduction, it drives inclusive growth and gender mainstreaming, it drives entrepreneurship, and this entrepreneurship is both in SMEs and large industry. As such, the private sector is front and center to the development or catalyzing of green economy zones. So I am happy to note that the Private Sector Foundation right now has a strategy, and this strategy is going to drive us for the next 5 to 7 years, and this strategy is underpinned on private sector sustainable inclusive growth and development. However, unlocking this opportunity in the green economic zones is only going to be possible if our private sector is competitive and strong and financed in a way that it can grow. Therefore, there is need to adhere or to address some critical issues that would potentially curtail such a strong and competitive private sector. The number one, or one of the most critical ones, is access to affordable credit for development or for productivity. This issue has been, I think, one of our most consistent area of policy advocacy as Private Sector Foundation for over the last 20 years that we've been in existence. Consistently, one of the critical issues that has stayed on our policy agenda, our policy issue, has been access to affordable development credit from our private sector. I am happy to note that there are some development partners that have, in this period actually of the existence of PSFU, have supported PSFU in supporting Uganda's private sector in development, such as the World Bank, such as MasterCard Foundation. However, access to affordable credit is still an issue, has always been an issue, and it's something that is critical and has to be addressed if we are going to ensure that the private sector can really tap into the opportunities of the green economic zones. David did mention this, we do have, for example, currently a program that is focusing on employing young people below the age of 35, focusing on a value chain. So we work with a large company such as Mkutano, and we go through each point of their value chain to the very end to see how can they scale and employ young people in that value chain. So we're looking at 4 major value chains, that is agriculture, tourism, trade and allied services, and yeah, those are the 4. And we've been doing this for the last 3 years. However, the critical issue that affects our absolute success is that unavailability of accessible, affordable credit. So last year, for example, we created 90,000 jobs for young people in this value chain work that we're working on, funded by MasterCard Foundation. However, the success of these young people, the sustainability of their employment is curtailed because of that. So we need to address that challenge. And as Private Sector Foundation, so because we've been talking about this issue for such a long time, we decided that let's design something as Private Sector Foundation. Let's design something that can address these challenges. And therefore, we've designed what we're calling the Private Sector Catalytic Fund. And this Catalytic Fund is going to address that challenge, is going to try to address the challenge. The challenge is so big, of course, but interventions have to be designed in a way that can address it. So this catalytic fund is going to address, ensure that it will be non-collateralized capital. It will be capital that pays attention to the value chain or the business model that this SME is in. It will focus on SMEs, it's going to focus on youth, and it's going to focus on women. We are focusing on these categories because SMEs contribute the largest number of jobs in the economy. We are focusing on young people because they form the largest part of Uganda's population. And also, at the same time, they are the ones who actually can't access credit. We're focusing on women because women entrepreneurs in Uganda contribute to 40% of all entrepreneurs in the country. This is the highest number in the world. However, they are the ones who are least able to access credit because they do not have collateral. So this catalytic fund is trying to address these gaps. However, the problem is quite big, so it's something that we as a nation have to look at. The other issue, number 2, that has to at least be taken into mind as we are trying to ensure that the private sector can tap into the opportunity of the green economic zone is a progressive tax regime. We need to ensure that our tax regulation, our tax policy is aligned to private sector growth. So how do we ensure that the right incentive, the right tax environment and regulatory policies are in place to ensure that they're going to drive employment, they're going to drive jobs, it's going to drive SME growth, it's going to drive industrialization. That is also critical. Then the third major point is to ensure macroeconomic stability. The economy, the general macroeconomy has to be maintained and it has to be stable. So I'm really glad that we do have the Ministry of Trade here, which I'm sure its mandate is always focused on these issues. And yes, with those few words, thank you so much for listening to me, and you're very welcome this morning.